writing this story to share with you people about what I've encountered, which is all true, not a make-believe story. I was around 7 years old when I was going swimming in an old river in Quang Ngai, Vietnam. My family were living in a suburban place. It is dark and scary in Vietnam, especially when we don't have any lights. One scary thing that always scared me was the graveyards. People that died buried their bodies anywhere, even near rivers or so. Well, to continue my story, it was around 12 p.m. and the weather was extremely hot. Me and my two brothers decided to go for a swim. When we got to the river, my two brothers went off, leaving me alone by myself. Seeing my two brothers having fun, I started to go forward to them. As I was walking, I felt something really abnormal. It was the sands. The sands was moving down as I take each steps. After realizing that I was scared, I decided to go back. As I turned my body around, something, or a hand I would say, grabbed my leg. It started to pull me down. First, I thought it was just the sands, but then I can feel the fingers and the feeling of the hands. Then I started to go down. I tried to scream, but I just couldn't. When my head was almost covered with water, my older brother came to me, and all of a sudden, the hands let me go and I was up again. I was so lucky that day that my brother saved me. I told him about the incident, but he told me it might be the sands, and trust me, it wasn't. I kid you not, I could feel the hand. But this wasn't the end yet. Several days after the incident, a neighbor's daughter went to swim in the same river that I did up in north. One time, one of the sisters went up north there, and the sister swam, and something pulled her down. The other sister couldn't do anything. She decided to grab onto the other one, and both of them ended up dying. Many of my townspeople said that the water ghost took the sister's life. In case you didn't know, there are a lot of ghosts in Vietnam. The water ghost, which is very common, if you have the same birthday as the person that dies, they will pull you down and kill you. They do it to release their soul. I'm currently living in America. I must say, I believe in ghosts. My husband Chris and I had just moved into our first apartment together. As I was working out, Chris had noticed that there were two bowls placed in our cupboard with a single fork resting at the top. We were using the cupboard only to store food, so when I had gotten home, Chris had questioned whether I put the bowls there. Of course, I hadn't. For the next couple of days after that, Chris and I would wake up with a start, literally shot up from our sleep at exactly 6:30 every morning. What made this even more unusual was that the fact that both of us didn't even wake up until 10 a.m. for work. But there we were, up from the middle of our sleep, leaving us to do nothing but look at each other and wonder why. Several days passed, and I started to feel nervous. I started getting the idea into my head that there could be a ghost in the house, causing us to wake up at this ungodly hour. As Chris and I were about to go to sleep, I began to hear creaking noises from the kitchen nearby. I got up, turned on the kitchen light, and found that the cabinet, the utensil drawer, and the cupboard directly across from the former two were all slightly open to the same degree. I closed all of them, went back to bed, and began to hear the same creaking noises all over again. Now totally scared, I found myself getting up every 15 minutes to shut the doors and draw, which were progressing opening more and more, faster and faster. I had to finally ignore it to get a decent night's sleep. One morning, I was awoken by a man's voice saying, "Who are you?" Again, waking up at 6:30, we both shot up to see an old man standing at the foot of our bed, sternly looking at us, dressed in overalls and a red plaid shirt. Although I could see him in color, the window behind him shined the morning rays right through him. We stared in shock for about 10 minutes, then he vanished. With that, we didn't see or hear from him again. The little old lady downstairs, our landlady, showed us her family pictures about a month after the hauntings ended. Chris and I both agreed that the man we saw was her husband, who had built the house himself and died about 10 years ago. We've never told our landlady, but we think that her husband was just making sure that we wouldn't harm his wife. Hello. I was reading your stories and found them very fascinating. I have a story I would like to share about my dog Bandit. Bandit was an Isa Apso that me and my family had for about 14 years. Bandit had a series of medical problems, which since he was mainly my dog, I got a job to pay his vet bills. I was barely in my teens. We all loved that little dog so much. I have a large family, 4 brothers, and my parents and myself. Well, towards the end of his life, he became very ill. I was not living at home at the time, but my mom would always call me when something was wrong with him. On this day, I was driving out to my mom's. I started to cry and became very sad. I think I had a premonition of what was to come the next few days. Bandit, it turned out, had diabetes, and we didn't know it. He was very sick and spent the next few days in the vet while they tried to stabilize his glucose level, to no avail. He wouldn't eat. He was very weak. He kept getting fevers. There was no hope. We had to make the decision to put him to sleep. I must say that was the single most difficult decision I ever had to make. I was devastated. My mom called my brothers at their jobs, and everyone was there at that vet that day, except my dad. He was working. We spent a little time with him in the room before they took him back to give him the shot. That dog was smart. I could swear the little guy knew something was up. Finally, they took him back, and 2 of my brothers went back there with him. They came back out crying, and I knew I was done. I was completely devastated. That was my baby. But strangely, on the way home, I felt a sense of relief, like he wasn't in pain or suffering anymore. Like any crazy pet owner, I had him privately cremated at a cemetery, and to this day, his ashes are at my mom's. But in the weeks to come after we put him to sleep, my little brother, who still lived at home, could swear he heard Bandit at night. Sometimes when Bandit would get restless, he would kind of whimper, like he wanted someone to pay attention to him. That's what my brother would hear. Then my brother would call out his name, which is what he used to do when Bandit was alive, and it would stop. My father, big spook skeptic, also heard Bandit's claws tapping on the floor in the kitchen, one of his favorite places to sleep. My mom is always trying to get me to take the ashes with me, now that I have my own home, but I always tell her no, because that is his home. I don't know about anyone else, but I firmly believe that if an animal is treated and loved like one of the family, that they develop a soul, and maybe, just maybe, they are waiting for us in heaven. My belief is that my 2 grandpas that passed on some time ago are taking care of Bandit till I get there. I've lived in my house for 10 years now, and I moved here when I was 4 years old. Our house is 101 years old now, and it was built in October 1898. My first experience with my great-grandmother was the night we moved in. I was sleeping, and I saw the figure of a beautiful woman dressed in a ball gown that was probably dated in the 1800s. She walked over to my bed and looked at me sternly. What happened after that, I do not know. When I woke in the morning, my clothes were tattered and torn, and I had scratches and bruises all over me. My mom was terrified too, because the ghost had visited her also. She says the figure just stared at her for a long time, until my mom became so frightened that she had to turn on the light. I never saw anything again for 7 years. On November 21st, 1994, my best friend and her older sister were staying all night with me. We were all sleeping in my room. We had school in the morning. My room gets so cold in the winter because there is no way of heat getting up there, so I had a little portable plug and heater in my room. At about 4 a.m., they woke up and saw the knob on my heater turning on its own and the shadow of an old woman on my blinds. They tried to wake me, but I was in such of a deep sleep they thought I was comatose. Things have gotten a lot crazier since then. Things came up missing in the house after we had just placed them there. We hear footsteps in the hallways upstairs, doors slamming and flying open by themselves, etc. We finally became used to all of this. The past 2 years have been so climactic, they often frighten me. Last summer, my friend Andrea was standing underneath the chandelier in the living room, and one of the light covers fell right in front of her. If she hadn't have jumped back, it would have landed on her head. I checked the chandelier and the bolts and screws. They were so tight that they couldn't be moved. Then it stopped for a couple of months. Last September was the first time I had seen my great-grandmother since I was 4. I was asleep in my room when the instrumental of a song came on. My room went completely black. Then I saw lights like from a disco ball or something. The little circles of lights all over the floor, ceiling, etc. And I saw the figure of my great-grandmother and great-grandfather dancing to it. When the song was over, they disappeared, and my normal lighting returned. Then last December, I had a party. 3 of my friends were sleeping in the extra room upstairs, while me, my boyfriend, and another friend were sleeping in my room. My friends were in the extra room talking when the door started swaying back and forth. They checked the windows, which were shut tightly and locked, as well as all the other windows upstairs. Then the room went completely pitch black, and an elderly woman appeared and began talking to them. She told them to be very careful what they say in the house, and to be quiet so they wouldn't awaken him. She also said that she's been protecting all of us for years from him. Then she disappeared, and everything returned to normal. My most recent experiences were last night and right now. Last night, I was laying awake when the song Living Dead Girl by Rob Zombie came on TV. All of a sudden, the volume went all the way up. I have no remote to my TV, so I couldn't have actually turned it up. My TV is on one side of my room, and my bed is on the other. When the song was over, the volume returned to where I had it. As I'm typing this every time I mention him, whoever he may be, I get a very cold chill, and the hair on my neck and back stands up. My cat's tail gets real puffy, and his hair stands on his back. Then I hear people arguing in the hallway upstairs. I'm home alone. Then it's all over, and I feel safe. I just wish I could talk to my great-grandmother and thank her for protecting me, my family, and friends. I'm glad to have her around, even though she scared me from time to time. I've seen ghosts all of my life and live with one now. I was told by my grandpa that it's a gift, so I should just accept it. I've many stories, but I will start with the most interesting. Some years ago, a coworker and a friend asked me to grow and rearrange the flowers for a wedding. She asked me in February, so all winter long, we talked about it at work. She has one sister who was handicapped in a wheelchair, who was the flower girl. There were 5 bridesmaids. I kept having this dream of the wedding. There was someone at the altar, then the bride would come down the aisle, then the sister in the wheelchair. Finally, I asked my friend if she had an older sister. The succession of the 3 women made me think there must be someone. She was shocked when I asked her because she indeed had an older sister who died when she was 3 weeks old. I told my friend of a dream and told her sister is with her in spirit and grieves the fact that she can't truly be your older sister in the living. I asked the bride if we could make a bouquet for her and lay it on the altar. The morning of the wedding, when I was lugging in big buckets of flowers from the garden, she came. She was a small, precious, sweet soul. Of course she startled me, but I calmed down and turned to focus on her. She nodded her head and closed her eyes as if to say thank you. What a sweet spirit. My name is John, and I'm 22 years old. I'm currently living in California in the home I grew up in. I'm writing to ask you a few questions that will hopefully shed a little more light on my encounters. I'm a rational young man, not normally taken to flights of fancy. I'm an ex-police officer and served in the United States Air Force as such. I came home a few months ago and am living at home until I can reasonably get myself on my feet financially. Being an ex-cop, I have a few compact firearms located throughout the house, which are normally locked up. One of which is located in the bed table beside my bed. It's a SIG 226 with a laser sight and Holgram mini bulb, not a cheap sidearm. Anyways, To get down to my point, I'm a light sleeper, as the military has done to me in the past few years. One night, around 415, I woke with a feeling that I was being watched. I woke up and turned onto my side and looked at the doorway, which was open. Just outside my doorframe in the darkened alley was a shadowed shape. Thinking it was an intruder, I watched for a moment and blinked the sleep from my eyes and got ready to take a course of action. As I stirred slightly to attempt to reach for my gun, the figure moved deeply into the shadows of the hall and moved down the hallway towards the landing. I opened the night table and grabbed my gun and ran to my doorframe and then uncharacteristically just jumped into the hallway, my finger on the button that enabled my hologram mini bulb in laser sight to activate. What I saw still scares the bejesus out of me, even to talk or think about. Standing at the top of the stairs was a vaguely female shape. I could make out the contours and lines of the female form. My small light illuminated the entire hallway like a small sun, my laser light showing as a heavy dot against the dark shape. The thing that mystifies me is that whatever it was cast a shadow of its own on the wall. I got the distinct impression that whatever this thing was, it turned around in that instant. I stood there looking at it, and it stood there looking at me. I've been in wartime situations and have seen death in someone's eyes more than I dare to even count. But whatever this was scared me into being numb. Whatever this thing was, it slowly started walking towards me, and I raised my gun and drew down on whatever approached me. It seemed to almost pause for a moment, then seemed to almost blur and rushed at me and through me, and then was gone, as the only thing behind me was the hallway towel closet. I dropped my gun, unable to keep from shaking in pure terror, which is what I am now. I woke my parents, and my father proceeded to grumble at me with some very colorful expletives about being woken for a ghost, and walked out to the hallway, grabbed up my gun, and did a walkthrough of the house and found everything secured and in proper order. When this thing walked through me, I didn't feel the coldness that I've read about on your page. I felt warmth, almost like a warm body, then it was gone. That's my question. Am I imagining all of this? Why the warmth? Is that unusual? Even now, I'm scared stiff and always close my door and lock it at night, and normally don't sleep until about 3 a.m., as I'm terrified of what could be outside in the hallway. I rarely tell anyone this story, because usually they think I'm off my rocker. Being only 13, my ghost experiences are not many, but for once I've had to me they are freaky. The whole thing started when my grandfather died. He was only 56, and I felt guilty because I had to leave the hospital. When I returned about an hour later, he was dead. I've always carried that guilt with me and always will. My parents often leave me alone to go shopping, and I just sit around and watch TV. One time, it was a hot Australian summer. I'm Australian, and I thought I would die, pardon the pun, without any cool breeze. I was watching an old Titanic movie when the shutters started banging. Now, not really banging, but swinging back and forth and hitting the window. Well, this scared me to death, pardon another pun, but I soon forgot about the incident. Another time at the same setting, it was a corner of the eye thing that got me. Just for a brief second, I think I saw a tall figure outlined in black. Well, we eventually moved to America to travel and see the country. Well, this spirit or ghost or grandfather must have just packed away in the baggage, because when we moved to Texas, it was just the same. It's just a feeling. I mean, not just that kind of thing, but a strong, I am scared as heck feeling. This continued throughout the Phoenix, where I saw shadows a couple of times. We now live in Connecticut, and Granddad is making himself known. Our house detects any move. I mean, you move a muscle, it creaks. Well, it seems when I'm alone, the creaks are just always happening. In the dead of night, it still creaks. It's not my parents or my brother. My brother sleeps above me and is only 5. My parents are across the hall, and I can always hear them getting out or getting into bed. My dad has had some experiences. While in our current house, he was collecting firewood and felt a squeeze on his shoulder. He has also seen a little boy with lumps on his head when he was a kid. My mother has seen a ghost. They're both nurses and know what they see. Now the thing is, I always feel guilty when I see or feel the presence. I think it might be guarded, telling me not to feel guilty or something, but it's everywhere. It's like Granddad just follows me. I have the feeling 24/7. I will try and get my parents to email you with their stories. Thanks for reading. Hey everybody, it's Phantom of Darkness 2018 edition, and I'm coming with the outro for you, and I'm coming fast before you cry and you dine and you whine with me, and then we have a good night together and we hug each other virtually, because that's what's important. And geez, I must say that we really opened 2018 with a bang. Now, I know my goal is to provide you guys with longer stories, but 20 minutes is solid for now, but I promise you, we will get more. So seriously guys, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, but mostly share this around because I thought this was a great opening to 2018 and what we can build for the future. Now, I know you guys were expecting a video yesterday, maybe you weren't because it was, New Year, whatever you want to call it, but I'm really happy to give you guys an opening, a fantastic opening. Like seriously, the stories in this were so good. Like I really enjoyed these stories. Like I can't even believe. I mean, you got the animal story with the dog and the vet. It actually made me pretty emotional, I'm not gonna lie. And then you had like all the, the cop story, the ex-cop story, that was pretty cool. But most of all, you got my nonsensical babble, and that's what you guys really appreciate. So I'm going to continue that for the rest of 2018 and beyond. We are not going to stop until the lights of the show just turn off and kill us all. I don't know what that means. Anyway guys, seriously, I'm not making any sense, and I'm not going to continue to make sense. But what I will do is provide you with stories that are enlightening, and that will bring you ghosts into the paranormal, and also grandfathers, moms, dads, children's, fathers, toaster ovens, ovens with no toaster in them, anything that you can think of. Stick figures, Pepsi bottles, cans of soda, we all got it here, guys. No, but seriously, what the hell? Okay, I'm definitely opening 2018 with the most nonsensical babble I've ever had an outro before. But in the comments section below, let me know which story was your favorite, because it's pretty hard to choose. I really seriously liked all of them, and I'm not just saying that just because I made this video and I like this video and I'm happy that I got this video out for 2018. Yeah, I read that fast. Anyway, I said that fast. You know what? Bye. I love you guys. Good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video.